Bring on our guy, Luke Johnson of NOLA.com and The Advocate, with us on Thursdays on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
I'm doing okay, my man. I'm doing okay. I might get to cover a win at some point in the next 5 years. I don't know, but I'm sticking with it just in case.
I love your odds in the next 5 years. I think they're great. I think you just keep your head down, you keep sticking to it. I think you got a shot over the course of the next 5 years. How much more difficult did Tyler Shuck's life get, if at all, on Tuesday with the trade deadline?
I mean, it's definitely like they're definitely worse off now than they were, at least in terms of their 2025 outlook. Um, for like I don't think Shaheed is a perfect player by any stretch, but like he does do some things that very few guys can do. And they're going to be they're just plain and simple not going to be as good without him in the lineup. But I mean, I think you had to make a move there. You probably weren't going to bring him back next year. Certainly not at what he's probably going to command on the free agent market. By the time he would be contributing to a potentially contending team, if things went really well, he'd be in his 30s. And for a guy who is kind of slightly built receiver whose game is completely built on speed, that's not what you want to do. So I don't know exactly how they're going to fill his role. I don't think they can just one for one fill it. The deep stuff is probably going to go to Cooks or maybe Mason Tipton, and maybe we'll see a little bit more of Devon Bailey actually being in this offense. It's been like a question mark all season long, like why they cannot get him involved. It seems like there's plenty of opportunity to use a 6'5", 210-pound receiver when you got just a bunch of guys who are 6 feet, 190 pounds. But I will have to see it before I believe that is going to be a thing. We'll see. I mean, they're not going to be as good. That's just plain and simple. But fact of the matter is, they already weren't very good without him or with them. So, you might as well take your draft picks and move on and see where you go from there.
I would agree with that, and we'll see. They go next to Carolina to play the Panthers. Rico Dowdle's had just an awesome year thus far running the football, and the Saints have not stopped the run. It was brutal to watch up in Chicago a few weeks ago. How do they deal with that?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be where their competitiveness starts and stops in this game. I mean, at times we've seen them actually look pretty decent against the run, but it's like a week to week thing where you just don't know what you're going to get. Last week was another not very good game for them. The week before against Tampa wanted to run the ball. They tried. They didn't really have a lot of success, and you start to think maybe they're okay, and then they give up 175 rushing yards to the Rams last week. And you think maybe they're not. So, I mean, that's going to be the key part of this week's game. I mean, Dowdle, I think, as they've gone 4-1 in their last 5 games, has something like 650 rushing yards.
Yeah.
And the one time they basically made Chuba Hubbard the lead back again. They got blown out by the Bills, and they're like, okay, well, let's make Dowdle the lead guy again, and then they go out and beat the Green Bay Packers. So, I mean, he's really good in this lineup, and if you look at how this Panthers offense is built, I mean they've got just a bunch of maulers on that offensive front who are not great in pass protection, but they're really, really good run blockers, and that's where they're going to make their money. So, I mean we'll see, we'll see what it looks like this week. I don't have a lot of faith. But every now and then they can kind of come out and surprise you with a good game plan against a run. So that's going to be where this one comes down to, I think.
You're not really in a spot with the way this team has played to point out individual guys, but you're trying to find building blocks for some sort of future here. And you would imagine, because of where he was selected and where he is in his career, that Brian Bresee would be one of those. You're talking about stopping the run here. What do you make of where Bresee is now in year 3?
Yeah, I think he's gotten better against the run this year. He was really, really bad in his first 2 years. Where he was playing more with 3 technique his first 2 years, and in this scheme he's more of the 3-4 defensive end. He's been better where he's not going up against kind of your interior offensive lineman every single play. But I still think as a player he's really best suited to be like a rotational passing downs player. He's I think a very good interior pass rusher. The sack numbers haven't really been there this year, but I think he's still impacting the game as a rusher. But still, yeah, that's kind of what he is. He's he's kind of a one-trick pony, which is okay. I mean, like, it's hard to find interior players who are good pass rushers. So I don't even count that as a miss, but like I think it'd be expecting too much for him ever to be like a true 3-down impact player. I think his role is going to be pretty clearly defined moving forward as like a situational pass rusher.
Same thing about kind of Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid. Now that you've got a bigger sample size of them this year, and they'll be facing a Panthers offense that doesn't throw it great. They've got some resources on the outside that they've spent with draft picks and free agency, but Bryce Young's numbers aren't very good. So how do you feel about the Saints outside in this game?
I feel okay. I think when we've seen them struggle the most, it's been against like the superstar receivers, and I think Teteroa McMillan is a really nice rookie for Carolina, but they don't have a lot of guys who really strike a lot of fear into you. So, I think they match up okay. I think Kool-Aid is somebody who I'm still kind of bullish on in his future. He's had some moments where he's really struggled this year, but he's also had some moments where he's looked really good. And for a guy who's still very young, I think he's only 22 years old, 22 or just turned 23. There's enough promise there to feel good about him. I don't feel as good about Alontae Taylor. It has never really clicked for him as a coverage player, and really the times when he's really impacting the game is when he's making plays behind the line of scrimmage, which is great. But like the thing that if he's going to be making a second contract with the Saints, it's going to be for his coverage ability, and that's just been way too inconsistent. It wouldn't surprise me if he's somebody that they're okay letting walk in the off season and trying to get a compensatory pick back for him, because it just, to me, like, he's got to make his money as a coverage player, and it just hasn't really panned out that way, whether he's been outside or inside.
The answers to these questions raise more questions about getting all these draft picks back, considering the people that are going to be making them, and the fact that we go, well, they put an early pick on that guy, maybe, and they spent an early pick on that guy, well, maybe. Like, is that kind of where we are at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, right? When you look at why this team is 1-8, I mean, it's because all of their good players aged out.
Yep.
And they don't have enough young players filling those gaps. And, I think this new regime came in and it looks like they hit on some nice young players. I think Quincy Riley's played well this year. I still like Jonas Sanker, even though, he's had his ups and downs as a third-round draft pick, third-round rookie coming in. I like what we've seen in flashes out of Danny Stutzman. I like Kelvin Banks. We'll see what happens with Tyler Shuck. But this has a chance to be like a decent foundational class for them, which is more than you could say for like the last 5 years, right? They've had a lot of misses in the draft. I mean, we just saw them trade Trevor Penning for like a bag of Doritos this week, and he was a first-round draft pick. So, like, it is, if they're ever going to dig themselves out of this hole they're in, like, it's got to start there. They'll have cap space in 2027, but like, cap space is not, that's how you add to a contender. It's not how you build one up. You got to hit on the draft classes. And, so far, I mean, the results have not been good for this team. They just have way too many underperforming young players, or young players who just did not live up to their draft stock. So, I mean, they got to turn that around if they're going to have any hope of getting this thing pointed back in the right direction.
I'll admit, before I even ask the question, that I think I'm reaching here. We'll see what you think. But the sport does start with your division. It doesn't end there, but it starts there. And as we're looking at the Saints, we've always gone, and then you got Carolina, who stinks. Like, is there anything you can draw from this football game on Sunday as to where you stand with a team that's kind of been the punchline of the division for 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, Carolina, they're 5-4 right now. They knocked off a good Packers team. They blew the Falcons out of the water. They have done some nice things there to where you could say, okay, this is an ascending team under Dave Canales, right? So if you go in there and you get a win, and you look at the back half of the schedule, like they've got a lot of bad teams in the back half of their schedule. Like, you could see an avenue for this, being okay. Like, maybe this is kind of the jump start for the Kellen Moore era, where they start building some good vibes going into next year. So yeah, absolutely. Like this can be a little bit more of a clear referendum on the Saints, but it's got to start at some point, right? And this would be a good time to do it. Like, Carolina, while they're a winning team, they're just outside the playoff picture. They've had some some real stinkers this year. I mean, I just referenced the Buffalo game. They got beat like 40-9 in that game. So like, if you can go in there and get a win, like you could start building some positive momentum for a team that really, frankly, has not had much of it at all. I was looking back at it today. Since December of last year, right, December 1st, they have 2 wins. They're both against the Giants. Like get something against a division opponent and start building some positive momentum, some goodwill. Like Kellen Moore desperately needs that right now. 1-8. Like I still think he's like got potential to be a really good head coach, but like you need to start showing it at some point, right? And the fans are really starting to kind of turn on him and everything here. Like something this weekend, just like some positive vibes going into that bye week with a lot of quote unquote winnable games on the schedule in the second half of the season. You can start something here.
Enjoy Charlotte, my friend. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good, buddy. See ya.
You can follow him on Twitter at @ByLukeJohnson with NOLA.com and The Advocate. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.